Viewers, let's go straight across to Union Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Mr. Hardeep Puri. Mr. Puri, thank you very much for speaking to us this afternoon. Sad day today. I want to ask you, because you've known Mr. Ratan Tata, and Mr. Ratan Tata's life was really on a parallel track, wasn't it, to India's evolution as an independent nation. You look at his birth date, 1937, 10 years before India's independence, and then his career sort of mirrors the evolution of our state. Now, how do you view his contribution to rising India's growth story? That's the fundamental question. Where would you locate his contribution in the pantheon of the great nation builders?
We need to celebrate Ratan Tata's life. He led a full life. He's one of the few people about whom it could be said that he was a living legend even in his own lifetime. His contribution to the modern Indian economic development story is unparalleled. I think he assumed leadership of the Tata Group as chairman of Tata Sons in 1991. That was the year in which we started assuming outward-oriented postures and liberalizing the economy. Under his leadership, the wealth creation and the wealth grew 20 times, which is no mean achievement. He was in every sense of the word a giant amongst the business leaders. I'm not trying to in any way trying to diminish the importance of any other contributor. But if you look at Ratan Tata's contribution, you look at the Tata Group, you know, he started life on the shop floor to gain experience, and then in 1991 to 2024, the leadership he provided. I can tell you from my personal example that I had the privilege, by the way, of knowing him for many years when I was in the Foreign Service. But in the last, this is my 8th year in the part of the Modi team, and two of our, I think, major achievements. One is the privatization of Air India and the award for the construction of the new Parliament building to Tata Construction. And I had an opportunity to deal with him, his colleagues, etc. He was a giant amongst men. So it's a sad day that he has left us. But I think we should celebrate his life, his achievements, the vision he provided, and the fact that he's one of the few people about whom it will be said that he raised the profile and standing of Indian companies and made them take solid steps towards becoming global MNCs.
That's an important point, and I want you to sort of build on that. Mr. Puri, Tata was India's first globally recognizable brand. I mean, way before anyone else sort of even ventured to look west. As such a totem really for aspirational India. Could you really elaborate on this theme?
No, let me give you a simple this thing. Tata as a recognizable brand. Let me say, what does that mean? What does that branding mean? The brand, the Maharaja on the tail of the Air India aircraft, that was one branding. And then the Tata Group. I've served Rahul in London. I've served in New York. I've served in other global capitals. There are Tata hospitality establishments in all of them. Some directly, some in partnership. I mean, today, you know, if you go to New York, the Pierre, or if you go to, you know, when I was in London, the St. James Court, and so many establishments, he made it a global brand. They acquired properties, they built them, they in the process, they boosted India's historical and cultural you know, image, and it became a part of a, you know, an entirely new experience. And the fact that one group was able to, others have done it also, but it is a great tribute to the leadership he provided. It was a totally professional outfit. When I left the university in 1973, there were not so many employment avenues which were available, but I tell you, the TAS or the Tata Administrative Service even then used to rank as one of the most sought after employment avenues for people aspiring to. That it is a symbol, the brands for aspirational India, absolutely. And they're taking that to now to new lengths. I mean, the automobile story is well known, the acquisition of Jaguar and Land Rover, building all these other cars with collaboration, domestic manufacture on their own. All that is well known, but it is just not stopping in one sector. I mean, the hospitality sector is one. They're going into aerospace. They're in consumer products. So I think it's watches, jewelry. I mean, it's a fascinating canvas which the Tata Group is doing, and at the center of it is or was and will continue as an inspiration to be Shri Ratan Tata.
So let me ask you, because this is an important question. The Tatas, first to really go global, they continue to sort of build Bharat globally. What gives them this confidence, Mr. Puri?
I think if you have a good brand, you don't need much support. I mean, give me a good brand anywhere in the world and the brand will propel itself. But I think one of the greatnesses about the Tata Group is because of their high quotient of respectability and the ethical quotient, people were not scared to work with them. There was successive governments in India were very happy to collaborate with them. Wherever I've served as an ambassador or otherwise, we have very happily joined forces with them in terms of promoting what they had to offer, whether it was the restaurants in their hotels or etc. by I'm not saying you patronize them. No, but if you have a good Tata hotel or a good hotel of any other brand in the city where you're serving as an ambassador and they have restaurants which are serving good Indian food, you support that. Equally when it comes to other products, when it came to Air India, I mean, why did we heave such a sense of relief and satisfaction when the Tatas bid and won the bid fair and square to reacquire the privatized Air India? Because this is a story which the country and different parts of the country, different parts of the economic entities who support it, different entities and different groups, and they grew together. I mean, we've come from being a less than $2 trillion economy in 2014 to being a $4 trillion economy. Now we're heading to $5 trillion. India's growth means the Indian private sector has to grow. The ultimate wealth creation is going to come from the private sector. And I think any government, no matter where it is, will always benefit from and would want to give support to private sector entities who in turn provide support to the country's growth story.
Viewers, let's also go across to Mr. Amitabh Kant, G20 Sherpa and former CEO of NITI Aayog, who joins us. Thank you, Mr. Kant. I know that most people who worked in government would have had some interaction with some part of the Tata empire. This is just not possible that the two can exist in different silos. Now, from a completely different perspective, I want to ask and understand from you, how did Tatas build the corporate legacy that they have at this moment in time, and especially what's the contribution of Ratan Tata there?
So Rahul, I met Ratan Tata when I was a very young officer in Kerala, and we had a joint venture with the Tata Group on the travel and tourism side, and he really drove it. That was the first state with which they were running about 7 hotels in Kerala at that time. And they advertised that every state, the Taj has 1 hotel, but in Kerala, being God's own country, it has 7 hotels. And then, when I came to Government of India, my relationship with him continued in the world of tourism. And when I wrote my first book, Branding India, An Incredible Story, he was very kind enough to call me and say that I will release it in the Taj in Mumbai. And it was a wonderful show, and he spoke so eloquently. But later when I became Secretary DIPP in the Industrial Policy and CEO NITI Aayog, I discovered another facet of his personality, and that was that he cared about nutrition, he cared about learning outcomes, he cared about animals, and he cared about the growth and progress of the common citizens of India. And that, to my mind, was remarkable because he spent hours and hours with us on his concern for children in India being stunted and wasted, and he collaborated with us. The Tata Trust collaborated with us on both nutrition and on the aspirational district program. So I realized that he was not a mere businessman. I mean, he'd done tremendously, phenomenally well in expanding the Tata empire in many areas of growth. And, but more than that, he was a remarkable human being in terms of his sterling qualities of focusing on what needed to be done in India. So I think we need to look at it from another perspective of the legacy of the man. And that is his concern for the common citizens, the growth, the prosperity of India. And that is why, while he globalized the Tata empire, he bought over the steel companies, he bought over Jaguar and Land Rover, he bought over the Tata Tetley, and he made Indian companies truly global in nature. And India is actually benefiting from that globalization in many ways. But more than that, he was a great human being.
Mr. Kant, doing business was never easy in India. If you look at our history post independence, red tape, the license Raj, the command economy, the Nehruvian Indian states, innate anathema to profiteering. And you remember that dialogue between Nehru and J.R.D. Tata, who can never forget that. How did you, therefore, think Mr. Tata looked upon our emphasis pretty much as a template of our constitutional values on socialism? How did that sort of capitalist outlook grate up against India's socialism? And do you think, who really influenced whom? Did the Tata Group influence India, the state, or did the state actually influence the Tata Group?
No, the Tata Group influenced the state in many, many ways. I mean, the fact that it ran the first airline which was nationalized, but look at this. When we disinvested, it went back to the Tatas. The fact that the Tata empire went from just manufacturing trucks and lorries into manufacturing cars in India. And now, look at the way they have spearheaded electric vehicle movement in India. Look at the way they've added value in tea and coffee and many other areas of growth. And look at the way they ventured into a range of cutting-edge areas of growth in recent times, from semiconductor to research and R&D in chip manufacturing in Assam, to Dholera, to looking at a huge amount of manufacturing in defense sector. India has become a great Make in India story largely because of the completely new ventures which Tatas have gone into, and therefore the vision of the government, that is Prime Minister Modi's vision of Make in India, has been translated on ground in many ways by Tatas. And look at the man, I mean, his passion was about startups. And when in 2016 we launched the Startup India movement, in one of his trips to Delhi, I had a long discussion with him. And soon thereafter, he started doing his due diligence and started putting his own personal money in many of these young startups of today. So he encouraged, he promoted, he became virtually an investor into many of our startups. And that, to my mind, was a remarkable story.
Yeah, it also, of course, speaks to his ability to, even at his sort of advanced age, to pivot to new practices. So that's I think, the hallmark really of the Tata Group, this innovative sort of mindset. But let me just come back, because in a time when crony capitalism has become an obsession for some, and I don't want to make this political, but you know what I'm saying. The Tatas grew their empire without, under Ratan Tata specifically, because you can see the numbers, without the hint of scandal. Now, even when, of course, things soured, let's say, in the nano plant with Mamata Banerjee and her government, etc., or what have you, the Tatas pivoted very easily to the east and went into Gujarat and, sort of did business with Narendra Modi. There was not a problem there. This all sort of, this acceptability is remarkable.
So Rahul, let me, my brother Ravi, elder brother Ravi Kant was the managing director of Tata Motors at that time. And he told me that this is the first time in the history of the world when a fully completed plant in West Bengal was relocated to Gujarat simply on one message from the Prime Minister, the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, saying that you're welcome to Gujarat. And they went and they had a phenomenal reception in Gujarat, and they were able to transplant the whole nano plant there. But more than that, during that period, they bought over both the Jaguar and Land Rover, which brought technology to India, but which has made a remarkable story of actually an Indian conglomerate penetrating the global markets with both Jaguar and Land Rover. And to my mind, that is a remarkable story of entrepreneurship of an Indian company going totally global at that point of time in the automobile world. Now, the influence of that technology has now led to Tata's actually getting into electric vehicle, and they've done extremely well in the electric vehicles. And to my mind, the next lot of electric vehicles that they will produce will take on the Teslas of the world. You will see that in the market space. But what it really demonstrates is that his determination was to show that Indian companies are able to go global, they are able to penetrate global markets, and we can be the best in the world.
So, this is very interesting that you should speak about this, because this was my next question and my final question. I won't detain you much longer. Chorus, Jaguar, Land Rover, these were also sort of criticized at one point as being, vanity projects, acquisitions, etc. But you seem to suggest that that gave actually Indian business the confidence to try and enter markets where the Indian brand, the Make in India brand, was yet to establish itself, and many people said that maybe India could not finesse its products to world-class standards.
Rahul, it started with taking over the Tetley brand, Tata Tetley, their acquisition in terms of tea and coffee and value-added spices, etc. The story was that Indian tea was the best in the world, the Indian orthodox tea, but you could never find an Indian brand in the retail outlets the world over. But with the acquisition of Tata Tetley, it enabled us to put our brands in the retail outlets all over the world, and Indian brands were then put out. And that, to my mind, was the first story. That led to Chorus, that led to both Jaguar, Land Rover, and that has led to many Indian entrepreneurs going across the world and investing in global companies. And India is, actually, we don't realize this. We keep talking about FDI coming in, but Indians have become global in their perspective, and many Indian companies have acquired companies abroad.